People tend to think of marketing in a bubble. So they have a marketing team for their D2C and their social media, and then they have a separate team that manages their marketplace platforms. So their Shopify, their Amazon, their Walmart. And oftentimes the reason that they do that is because they are trying to drive what they think are target customers to certain websites. And another part of that is there's still this huge core belief that Amazon is bad. It doesn't represent the brand properly, and it cannibalizes your D2C sales as well as your brick and mortar. When in reality, these are all completely different customers. But if you look at marketing holistically, I think I said this earlier, it all influences all the other platforms.
Hey everybody, welcome to Creative That Converts. I'm presented by Social Motion. Today I have the pleasure of having Davey here. She is the Director of Marketplace Partnerships at Ecommerce Accelerator. Wishing you well. I love that name, by the way. Wishing you well. She leads growth strategy across Amazon, Walmart, and Target. She's got a decade of experience spanning e-commerce, SaaS, and retail marketplaces. She manages cross-functional teams and she partners very closely with consumer brands to scale them profitably, right, through data-driven marketplace strategy. She loves what she does. I'm so excited to have you here, Ali. Thank you for coming on. We're going to be talking about a couple of topics today. Number one will be identifying hidden demand through marketplace data and translating those insights into better marketing and position. And we're going to talk about where marketing breaks down on marketplaces and the buy-sell model today that is different than 10 years ago. But before we get into that, I really want to hear a little bit more about you, Ali, and share with our viewers today your journey a little bit and your role at Wishing Well, and hear a little bit more about you.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me. Some information about me. I'm currently in Colorado Springs, which is where Wishing You Well or Woo Brands is based. Our office and our warehouse is here. I was born in Southern California, however, grew up in Washington State, went to Washington State University. And just because of the timing, the Super Bowl is on Sunday, so go Seahawks. I will be watching that. I have been in the marketplace, Amazon, Walmart, back in the day, Alibaba space since my early 20s. So for about almost 12 to 15 years now, and have really come to understand how the market has changed over the last 15 years. There's been a lot of changes, and it's definitely more difficult than it used to be. And it's very different from retail and direct-to-consumer websites.
Wow, that's interesting. And you've been with Wishing You Well for how long?
For about 2.5 years now. It's been really fun and very interesting to dive back into an e-commerce accelerator that is not only offering agency services, but still operates within that exclusive reseller buy-sell model that gives brands on Amazon a different avenue.
Yeah, it's very, very, very unique. And so your experience with Wishing Well is 2.5 years since you've been there. And how did you get into this space?
So honestly, I graduated with a degree in sociology, but I was recommended a job at eTails right out of college, which then became Caspian. And they were one of the very first Amazon buy-sell companies, along with NetRush and Pattern. So I was sort of just thrown into it, and it expanded from there, working there for a large amount of time. I believe I was employee 11. And then at some point I was working for Jungle Scout and some other SaaS platforms. So there's always been some sort of consumer market research as well as marketplace component in my career.
So you've got a lot of third-party platform experience,
Correct. Yes.
which is very different than sort of a Shopify or e-commerce approach, right? It's just like the big distinction between the two and how they're run and how they're marketed, right? And how the platforms work.
Yeah, absolutely. They all funnel together. They all influence each other, but they all need to be treated very differently.
Awesome. Wonderful, wonderful. So let's get into some of these questions that we're talking about. So first thing that we're going to discuss is identifying these hidden demand and use cases through marketplace data and using those insights really to get better marketing position. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I'm sure you know, trying to be competitive on Amazon these days is very different than it was 15 years ago. Used to be able to put up a product, people would find it, they would buy it. There wasn't a lot of competition. There wasn't really anything that was data driven behind it. Today, you really have to dive into your data, your analytics to understand how to move the needle and ultimately grow not only your revenue, but your market share within the space. So, really, how you need to think about these platforms is that most brands are marketing it's a lifestyle, right? It's an aspirational positioning. You create a brand because you believe in XYZ and you want to market to people that are living that lifestyle. And that is great for direct to consumer. It is great for Instagram. It's great for social media because it invokes a feeling and emotion. So, for example, the brand might create a persona of like the Peloton mom or an eco conscious Gen Zer. And
Like an
then
avatar, you mean? Like an
it,
avatar. Okay. Wonderful.
exactly, exactly. And you have a brand story. Everyone knows brands market a lifestyle. When it comes to marketplaces like Amazon or Walmart, the brand story is very important and it can be depicted, especially as you get those repeat customers and they become a brand loyalist. But at the very beginning, the brand story ultimately dies at the search bar. Um, Marketplaces are really revealing what they call the preference theory. So, where an individual's desires are evidenced by their actions. So, how they are searching on Amazon. So, they're not going to go in and say, I'm searching for the Peloton mom. They're going to go in and try to surface how do you fix your problem that you're currently having? How do you fix the
I love
desire
that.
that you
Yes, it's
have?
pain solution, right? Yes, it's a discovery.
Exactly. It is used as a discoverability search engine, which is very different from the direct to consumer site. So marketplaces provide a high velocity feedback loop that the traditional retail lacks. Brands want people to search for a brand name shampoo. However, marketplace data shows that they are searching for shampoo that removes hard water buildup. So within this, we're really challenging assumptions that brands are making. And that is a lot of what I do in my job. They come to me and they say, here's how we want to market to customers. Here is what the consumer wants. Here's what the consumer needs. Here are our competitors. And after diving into their data, what you find out is sure, these might be some of your competitors in the retail space. But as we look at Amazon and Walmart, your competitive set is completely different and your consumer base is completely different. And not only that, when it comes to marketing, how people are searching and what they're using your product for could be completely different as well.
I love this. I absolutely love this thinking. And it shows you that the shift that you have to have on marketplaces is so different from a direct e-commerce mindset, or as you said before, so it's an aspirational brand, unless we're talking about fashion, which is I don't think we're going there, right? We're really, I think, more in consumer products. At least my background's more in CPG, and I so understand that sort of search intent and how people search, right? And how that search intent works and how they discover new brands is so much in line with what you're talking about. And I think in speaking to probably over 450 different brands since we launched our company, and we're on the creative side, you're so on the money. There is a very big gap between what they really understand from their marketing perspective as traditional branding and positioning and avatars, and then those third party marketplaces. So this is fascinating to hear. So I think that viewers today are going to learn a lot about that distinction from you, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, and this is where we come in to help close those gaps is to give you an example, I was speaking with a very well-known earbud headphone company, but their main market and their main use case is being OSHA compliant. On Amazon, that's not really the market for people. It's very rare people are going to go in and type in OSHA compliant headphones, and you can see it from the search volume. So they really wanted to grow, of course, increase their market presence and their revenue. But what we ended up having to do is to increase visibility. What we do is we look at shoulder keywords. So how else are people searching for your product? And finding out that if we're typing in headphones for like noise canceling headphones or headphones for mowing the lawn, um, that is going to have them show up and be more visible versus something that is a little more niche like OSHA compliant headphones.
Yeah,
They were like,
nobody's
that,
searching OSHA
yeah,
compliance. Yeah, no
And it-
OSHA compliance, but they are searching for kid safety headphones, like they're worried about the hearing for their children. So it's a perfect example.
Absolutely. And it's where this brand was so hesitant to change any of that because they were like, no, that's not what our product is intended for.
Wow.
We were like,
Wow.
that is not the use case. And I said, that's fine. I understand sticking to your brand story and your brand integrity. But if you want to treat Amazon as a growth channel, here are the shifts that you have to make.
Excellent, excellent. And I think the issue is when you speak with a big brand, sometimes they think, and if they're dominating in the market, they never own all of the market. There are always new people to discover your brand, and they get locked into this idea like, I control the market, I control the narrative, and it doesn't work like that. And they don't understand that people to discover you are not coming in the same doorway that you're opening, and they're stuck with one door and they need others. And that's really what you're talking about, right? In a sense, Allie?
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You'll probably be able to infer who I'm talking about just from the description I'll give you. And this goes back to my consumer and market research days, but this is one of the most famous case studies, and you can find all the information out there and actually see the shift that they made. But they came to us to really understand what consumers were using their product for. And they said, well, we know that our target audience is mom and sick kids. We went in, did our analysis, looked at it, and we actually found out that within the last, 4 to 5 years, their target audience had shifted from mom and sick kids to college kids and adults that were looking for hydration. Really, the search term was hangover cures.
Wow.
And
Wow.
instead of
Wow.
them saying, no, we're just going to continue to focus on our target market, they leaned into it. They created new advertising, new videos showcasing adults drinking it, not looking so healthy. So they didn't relaunch the product. They just changed and showed that it surfaced a brand new use case. Sure, it's still super effective for moms and sick kids and parents. That's great. But now you have this whole new audience of college kids, people that,
Did they keep both, Allie? Did they keep both campaigns simultaneously and then opened up these new avatars and these new campaigns as well?
yeah, they didn't just replace one with the other. They embraced both. And one of the commercials that they came out with, it was really funny. It shows a dad drinking the product and the child coming up and saying, "Hey, that's mine. That's meant for me." And so they enveloped both.
How do you handle the pushback from clients, Allie, when you come in with these ideas? Because they always kind of feel like, I know my brand, I understand my customer, and now you're coming and you've got this pushback from the client. How do you manage that? Wish you well.
It does go both ways. This brand, they embraced it. They saw an opportunity. They were very open-minded. When they're not, it is always making sure you're validating, and I don't mean that in a condescending way. I am very loyal to many brands because of what they stand for and the brand story that they have behind it and what they believe in it, and that's important. But it's a reframing and it's a shift of here is actual concrete data. I'm not telling you this for fun. Here's what we're actually seeing. And it's more about framing it as the cost of inaction. Here is what happens if you continue to travel down this road versus if you make these small adjustments and let's see how the brand can transform. So you do have to push back and
Give them the data.
give them data
Give
and
them the data.
so show them case studies, show them success stories. It's really telling it's telling a story. It's being able to take that data and put it into a story that they can relate to and a real world situation instead of just spewing analytics at them.
And do you look at those analytics directly yourself, or are people on your team looking at that and sharing that with you?
So I look at a lot of the analytics myself. It is probably one of my flaws because it is something I could outsource, but I really like diving into the data. That is fun for me. And it's also something that I do with the rest of my team and some of that cross training that you had mentioned, showing how to run these analytics. So I do a lot of enablement. So it goes hand in hand. Sometimes I have people do it as an exercise and then I fact check it, but it is something that I do almost daily and I do prep for before I talk to, potential new clients and our current clients. Um, so yeah.
So if you had, like for our viewers today, if somebody wanted to sort of do this themselves, like to get these insights, would you share a way to like kind of walk through like, okay, here's what you should do. Step one, two, and three. Here's what I would do. If I was your friend, I came to you and said, can you help me out? I've got this joint supplement and I'm bringing it on to Amazon or I'm selling it there already, but I don't really understand. I know my customer on e-commerce, but I don't really understand marketplaces. Um,
Mhm.
Maybe you could walk us through just the kind of step one, step two, step three.
Absolutely. That gets a little tricky because we do have our own proprietary software that we use to pull this data. I know there are a lot of other third-party softwares out there that I could recommend that people could use, such as Jungle Scout, Helium 10, using your own Seller Central data, which really is a combination of what I'm doing is I'm using our software, but then I'm also fact checking it against a Seller Central or the Walmart Seller Central, and that is giving us the concrete data. Whereas, as good as our proprietary software is, it really is just directional. It's used to identify trends and be directional.
So just in general, like from the steps in a general way, like here's what you should be looking for, putting aside the tools for a second, that
Mm,
they might with the tools that are available to them, that most of these sellers have access to a lot of these tools, not the wishing you well tool, but the others. Like step one, your assumption, this is who you think your client is. Okay, here's our next step. Let's go into the keywords. Let's kind of just get a baseline of
mhm.
how that mind shift happens.
I would go honestly, go in and think about all of the ways that somebody might be searching for your product on Amazon or Walmart. A lot of times that's how I start. So what's the problem? Are people going to go in and search for, I need a waterproof phone case for an iPhone? What are all the ways that you think somebody could be searching for your product and see who your competitors are? So see the brands that pop up, see where your brand is showing up, if they are showing up at all, and where they're showing up on those first pages. So really looking at the relevancy. And then you can compare that to going in and doing more of a branded search. So I would do that second. So type in your actual brand name, see what pops up, see who your direct competitors are. That's showing who's bidding against you and taking that information to understand what the correlation is. And then third, do what essentially the brand, what its intended market use is. So, what is your brand story? Type in, Peloton mom, your audience, we created, a Nalgene water bottle or whatever it might be. And then compare the how the consumer might shop and think to this is what the intended use case is. And from that, you can start to get an idea of who your competitive set is, not only at the brand level, but at the product level. And that can really help you to understand the different ways that people are thinking.
Great, great. That's very helpful. So, kind of step by step walking through and understanding the problems, the solutions, the intent, the ways people are coming in to discover products, or if they're looking directly outside a brand, right? Obviously, a brand search is very specific, but in terms of intent, it's really like fishing that out. And as you said before, as you said about the hydration products, kind of like, oh, wow, epiphany, right? People are actually searching for this completely different. There's a whole other audience out there. I think that's kind of a mind bending in some ways, right? Like there's a whole market out there that's using your product and you're totally don't even know that they're using the products for that purpose. And marketplaces, as you said, kind of accelerate that because there's so much data coming into something like Amazon, right? It's like one
Yes.
collective point of, and that's why DSP in a sense is so powerful, right? Because it's so first party data. Where else do you think marketing is breaks down and when people go out to market on Amazon and other marketplaces?
I think it can also break down because I don't so I would say that people tend to think of marketing in a bubble. So they have a marketing team for their D2C and their social media, and then they have a separate team that manages their marketplace platforms. So their Shopify, their Amazon, their Walmart. And oftentimes the reason that they do that is because they are trying to drive what they think are target cost customers to certain websites. And another part of that is there's still this huge core belief that Amazon is bad. It doesn't represent the brand properly and it cannibalizes your D2C sales as well as your brick and mortar. When in reality, these are all completely different customers. But if you look at marketing holistically, I think I said this earlier, it all influences all the other platforms. So eventually it's all going to come back around. People are going to go search for something on Amazon, and then they're going to go double check the brand's website to check the credibility and the price point. People are all about shipping and price point and what's best for them and what's most convenient. So all of that traffic flows. And today, with Amazon's new algorithm, they are rewarding outside traffic increasingly more. So they are pushing people to advertise on social, advertise on their D2C, and push it towards Amazon and Walmart.
That's so interesting, that you say that. Couple of things that, come to mind for me. Number one is that, like, sometimes brands, as I said, they think they own all the channels. They think like, "Oh, if somebody bought this on Amazon, they really could have bought it on my website," but the reality is that would have never happened. It was in I mean, my background, again, 15 years of e-commerce. I ran a large site for a division of a company years ago. And one of the things that we talked about all the time, everybody thought there's this cannibalization, but I would kind of have this analogy like if you've got a brand like, I don't know, Trek bikes, and you get a catalog to your home, where you purchase that Trek bike really doesn't matter.
Mhm,
It's that you bought the Trek bike. Right? So whether you bought it on Amazon or you bought it on that site, you don't own the whole market. The idea is to build your brand and let the consumer buy it where they want to buy it. So Amazon is not the enemy per se because everybody thinks like they lost the sale to Amazon from the other channel that they had, but it's absolutely incorrect.
mhm.
And the idea is to build that ecosystem across platforms, across your website, across educating consumers, and even on connected TV, right wherever they see you. But at the end of the day, as you said, the consumer is going to decide where they buy the product, what's most convenient for them, and what makes most sense. But to step away from Amazon today is pretty much it's impossible in a way. It's like most
Yeah.
of the traffic is going there, and your brand will be invisible, and you can't scale it.
Mhm.
It's kinda interesting around Nike, who kind of came in and came out and came back in. I don't even know where they are. They came in and out of Amazon in so many different ways. I don't know. Do you know where they are today? Are they back in? There was a time that they had stepped out of Amazon completely. I don't know if you know that.
I don't. I'm not up to date on that. To my it so that it's a very interesting that you bring that up because in my earlier years, I was focused on really on an Amazon category. So I was in charge of sports and outdoors as well as home health and beauty and targeting those brands. And what I found, 10 years ago is you have these very well-known high name brands like North Face, Birkenstock, you said Nike, and to them, Amazon was a four-letter word, and that pitch was basically impossible. And yes, they are large enough companies that do they need Amazon? Probably not. Are they missing out on sales? Probably. But then the pitch shifts from, okay, it's not a growth revenue channel for you. Your products are on Amazon whether or not you want them to be.
That's another
And
issue.
are they actual products? Are they current SKUs? Are they outdated? Are they counterfeit? So it becomes less of a growth channel and more of a control the narrative, control your image channel, as well as a convenience. So some of those larger brands, yes, they're choosing to ignore Amazon because they can afford to do that, and they're mostly worried about the brand image. But that's why it's so important to make sure you have that consistency across all channels and you have that credibility across all of your channels and your pricing is consistent across all of your channels.
I mean, that's what I dealt with, a lot of pricing issues, and if you didn't control pricing to some degree and have some control out of the gate, that was a major problem.
Mhm.
And because the brand that I work with in the past was also omni-channel, we had 1,500 retailers selling the products, and we were selling also on our own website, and then on Amazon, well, of course, we'd get screaming retailers coming in, right? "Oh my god, you're selling on your website." I said, "Look, we don't own the entire market. We were a number 2 brand in the market, but we don't own every sale, and if
Mhm.
we don't sit here and market, our brand is gonna diminish." And I'll give you a beautiful example of this. I mean, you could have a product that you're running and you ignore Amazon and you're a major brand, but guess what? Chinese competitors are coming in. They're improving on your brand. They're launching new, beautiful brands on Amazon. And now they're going to retail and saying, hey, look at all the traction we have. And the next thing you know, you could be pushed off the shelf at
Mhm.
a major retail like Walmart.
Mhm.
And that's why those platforms are so critically important.
I mean, they're doing it faster, they're doing it cheaper, they have better margins. It causes a pretty large problem for products that are, um, made in America, American sourced, but there still is that audience that's what they prefer. Um, they would prefer to have something that has been manufactured in America.
Yeah, even if that competitive product is made in China, the issue is like those competitive brands are coming up and growing at a really rapid rate, and you're ignoring Amazon, and suddenly you're like, so one of the clients I dealt with made kind of robotic pool vacuums, right? And that, you don't have to plug in; they're all solar powered, and their business shifted from a retail of, 80% retail to more like a 60% online to 40% retail. But every day, new competitors from overseas are copying that product and positioning themselves. And so, if they let go of the pedal, if they stop pressing on the gas on Amazon to some degree to not be visible, they could be displaced. The entire business can get displaced.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so they've been super aggressive, right? At really managing Amazon, making sure they're, proactive. I want to step away for a second to the buy and sell model that and that difference today and 10 years ago, and maybe explain to everybody like what that looks like and what that means.
Yeah, to be very frank with a lot of the companies that I worked for prior to this, there wasn't a set execution. It was strictly more of a distributor model. We're going to place POs, we're going to buy the product, we're going to resell on Amazon. And the problem with that is it worked for a while, but as people became more savvy and the marketplace became more competitive, and the idea of being a reseller on these marketplaces became more well known and people were like, "Oh, it's actually very easy to just maybe we buy a bunch of discounted product at Costco, slap it on Amazon, and we're gonna make some money." So that's when the model started to not necessarily fall apart, but it needed to evolve. So you definitely have to be more strategic within this buy sell model in that when we have a partnership with somebody, it is framed as we are both have stakes in the game. And what that means for us as a company, and really anybody who does this, is we are your exclusive partner. There are no other resellers involved because then you come into this price war. You come into, I'm splitting the buy box 50-50, which means we're not moving through as much inventory as we should, which means we're not placing as many POs with you as we could because we're worried about sitting on, inventory that we're going to get charged for at Amazon. So it's really that exclusive piece and abiding by their MSRP or their MAP, so that that also matches the rest of their channels. It's not to say that we don't work with companies that have a messy channel. We all work with actually quite a few brands that came to us and said, the channel is out of control, but we would still like to do a buy sell model with you. So that's where we bring in the brand protection. We bring in our brand protection partners and we get their distribution, we get their distribution policy set in place. And that essentially goes out to anybody and saying, you no longer have a right. You can sell through your current inventory, but as of this date, you are not allowed to sell on Amazon or Walmart anymore. And that has to be done from a legal standpoint. It can't be done through an agency. The brand can do it, but it's best done from a legal standpoint. And they can even go as far to find the guy that's selling out of his garage and send a cease and desist letter. And so eventually you start to see this channel cleanup, which is not only beneficial to the brand because pricing stabilizes, but it's beneficial to us as somebody who is trying to place as many POs and push as much product as we possibly can. So sometimes there is a 6 to 9 month cleanup because it's whack-a-mole, especially
Right,
if
right,
they
to go.
they distribute through KeHE or UNFI, somebody's
Wow,
always gonna pop back up. So
right.
I always tell people if you're gonna launch on Amazon, make sure you have an ad budget and make sure that you have a clear distribution policy in place so that the channel always stays clean and you don't have random resellers, popping up on there and distorting the sales and the pricing.
And what kind of clients does wishing you well and you look for that should be using that model and working with you that way?
Yeah, so this goes back to actually the company name, which it is funny when I first started, working here and got hired, I would, tell my friends and family where I was working and they would say, "Is that a greeting card company? What is that?" And it really comes from our founders. He was very focused on he is still very focused on, health and wellness and community as well as long-term partnerships. His life motto is really, I mean, it's just wishing you well. He wishes people well. He wishes his employees well. He
I love
wishes our
that.
partners well. So it used to be that we specifically worked with brands that were health and wellness supplements. That expanded into CPG. And of course, to be competitive, we do work with brands that are in all categories. And as far as determining whether or not that buy sell model or let's say an agency or even working with them as a 3PL is the best fit, it really depends on, of course, a couple of things the brand's margins as well as ours. What does it look like from a buy sell capacity? And also operationally, what does that look like for them? Can they handle doing the FBA prep or creating bundles and sending that into Amazon or Walmart?
They have to be a certain size, Ali? They have to be a certain size to work with, I
In
mean,
a buy Yeah, in a buy-sell
for the
model,
buys.
we typically deal with anything that is oversized, and it's very rare that anything oversized is also going to be fulfilled by Amazon. It's usually an FBM. The fees are just they're just too high.
Right.
So yeah, there are
For big
certain
products like refrigerators or that sort of thing.
yeah, exactly. Nursery furniture is also a good example. Yeah.
Big items. And what about the size of the companies? I mean, do they have to be doing a certain amount of sales for you even to consider taking them on? And like, what's the criteria when they come in?
We have baseline criteria like all companies do, but it's really about the opportunity and the growth we see and where we can be most effective. We do like to work with brands that already have an established presence on Amazon. The launch, we're happy to do it, but you just have to set appropriate expectations, which is, exactly what I would tell a friend if they were trying to launch on Amazon. Like I said, don't do it without pushing outside traffic. Make sure you have an ad budget, really, really plan for it. And if you're going to launch, do it once, do it right.
You know, I this is of course creative that performs. So I want to talk a little bit about some of that creative and some creative challenges, especially as it comes to a sponsored brand video and display. And I'd love to hear a little bit of your challenges there and what you've learned. And I think what's interesting, I bring this back to like search intent because I know a lot of our focus is really creating much more variation and treating Amazon much more like Meta is, right? Like it seems to be a little bit behind in a sense in testing when it comes to video and creative. Love to hear a little bit about your experiences there. Wish you well with your clients and how they use video and the challenges and what's hard and how you go about it.
Video is extremely powerful. And, Amazon does like for you to have video in your listings and especially on your brand store. It also is dependent on the product, especially if there's a certain function or you are trying to get specifically how it is used across to a consumer. We do make and create videos in our creative department for our brands. What we usually do is work with their existing assets if they have them, because that showcases what they have worked on in their brand story and their brand image. Our team is very good at going in and making these Amazon friendly, Amazon compliant, as well as them being really engineered for how people shop and look on Amazon. And when I say that, you have about 3 seconds to capture first interest. And that's generally from them going and hovering over the first three images. So if you're not conveying what the product does and why they need it and why you are different in 3 seconds, they might move on to something else. They might not hit add to cart. So I do think that videos, I think they're the most impactful. They can be on your brand page, but your PDP is where everybody goes and where the most traffic lives. So those first three images are crucial.
And what about sponsored brand video now, sponsored product, sort of A/B testing? Do you guys do any of that?
We always A/B test. To be honest, I would I have to defer to my advertising team
No,
on.
that's okay. These are just questions I'm asking that we're seeing in the marketing trends. No worries. No
Yeah, but
worries
I
at
mean,
all.
in terms of A/B testing, absolutely. Amazon is not a set it and forget it. It's a we're going to make our updates, we're going to change our keywords, and then in 3 months we're going to pressure test that against what we're actually seeing and tweak if necessary.
And is there anything new coming up in the pipeline at Wishing Well? Are there new things that are going on that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, always lots of new things going on here. We have a few prospective clients that are coming to visit us and coming to check out our office is about a year old, so it's new. It's really beautiful, and then check out the warehouse, which is quite it's much larger than our other one. So it's always fun to have these prospective clients in house. They get to meet everybody, get a feel for the facilities. And of course, it's, trade show conference season. So I'm about to be everywhere all at once. And, I love that finding new brands and really meeting new people. And I have people that I still connect with and try to meet up with from, 10 years ago, whether or not we
Wow. What
together.
shows do you attend?
So we usually do, Prosper. We do Etail West. Expo West is the big one coming up next. And then there, ABC Kids, Toy Fair. So quite a few. I mean, it's my busy season for traveling.
Well, I'll tell you, it's great chatting with you today. You brought a lot to the program, and we really appreciate you coming on. And we wish you continued success too.
Yeah. No, this was really fun. It's great to chat about it, and I love the opportunity.